Hey, this is Kenny with Keller Williams Realty, coming to you today with another weekly video. Hope everybody's having a great week. Today, I'm going to jump right into it. I have a longer video today with the complete buyer outline of the process. I got like 6 pages here. I want to lay it all out, excuse me, and put it into like video form so that way you can look at the process from start to finish, how it goes, especially like first time home buyers or if it's been a while, just wondering kind of the ins and outs of it. I'm going to lay it all out here and feel free to ask any questions. Um, if anything comes to mind, if I leave anything out. Um, but like I said, I'm going to jump right into it. You might see me flip my pages, but I kind of jotted a few notes just to make sure I hit the main points. So, so if you're a buyer, you're looking to, maybe buy a house. Um, the first step is, get a pre-approval from a lender, to have that money behind you and everything like that. So the pre-approval will give you a lot of information. I talked a lot about this before. Pre-approval will give you a lot of information that you'll want to know. It'll help you know what kind of home price that you should be shooting for based on your income. It can help you know what kind of payment, your monthly payment that you can swing that you're comfortable with. It'll help you know your down payment and closing costs, like the cash that you'll need to bring to closing. Um, let's stop for a second and talk about closing costs. So these are lender fees, attorney fees, prorated taxes, like in HOA, prorated HOA, insurance, etc. Um, all of that stuff is buyer's closing costs. Um, so let's talk about what it takes to qualify for a loan. It's 620 give or take. Some lenders will go like 580, some are like 620. It depends on who you go to. You have to have. They also check for your ability to pay the down payment, so they're going to check your bank statements, see if you got some cash in the bank, and ability to pay closing costs as well. In this market, sellers aren't helping much with the closing costs that I just talked about. So the cash to close is the down payment and the closing costs. So what is the down payment? So typically it's like 3.5% to 5% of the sales price. Closing costs could be 3 to 4%, depending on the purchase price. Closing costs are kind of like fixed. So say if it's 500,000, it's a very similar closing cost than the 200,000. So that percentage is going to be lower. The higher you take it, the percentage of the cost you're paying are going to be lower. So if you have like $100,000 loan, the closing cost is going to be really high because those fees are similar. It's some fixed fees. A closing attorney, for example, might charge $1,000 no matter what the loan is, to close it. So it don't matter if it's 100,000 or 500,000. So as a percentage, that's going to be less of 500,000. Just want to clear that up. So that's why it's not. And your lender will give you this. So you talk to your lender. Your lender's going to tell you exactly. Hey, this FHA loan, 3.5%. It's in this county. This is the taxes. These are our fees to originate the loan, to underwriting, whatever it is. This is what we're going to give you a pretty good estimate right now. This is what you can expect to pay for some of this stuff. So that's another reason why you go to the lender first. They can give you a really good idea, especially if you know what area. They can give you even better idea. If you have an exact property, they can give you a really good idea. But they can give you estimates even without a property, even without an area. So here's an example. So you got $200,000 house with FHA. So FHA loan is 3.5% down. So on a $200,000 loan, that's 7 grand. So let's say it's 3% closing costs. That's 6 grand. So that's 13,000 cash to close on a $200,000 house. Just to estimate, but that's somewhere in the ballpark. But this is why you talk to a lender to see, what it is exactly. Second is the commissions. So here's how commissions work for the agents. So commissions are paid to the listing agent that lists the home for sale. So say you say, Kenny, I'm looking to sell my home on 123 Main Street in McDonough. Okay, cool. What do you want to sell it for? You want to sell it for 200,000? Yeah, that's what my neighbor sold it for. Okay, cool. So that's going to be 6% commission to me. So they say, sellers like, I don't care how you get it done. You get it done. You market it. You get people in the house. You give me a good offer, and you put some money in my pocket. Say, okay, that's 6%. Listing agent, I may or may not have a buyer that want to buy 123 Main Street. So I blast it out. We have open house. We put it on Facebook, put it on Zillow, put it on the MLS, put all that stuff, and we get some traffic through there real quick. And these people are going to have their agents. They're going to have their buyer agents. So if I have a selective buyer has already got an agent, I split my commission with them. So I had six, I get them three. So it's only fair because they already vetted that person. They work with them. They obviously you're going to bring a buyer that's already got a pre-approval. They got cash in the bank. They're motivated. They've already been looking. This is exactly what house they look. They've been, they already know what's in the area. They know that's what they want. They know the school district, all that stuff. That buyer's agent brings that person, and they already know that this is the one for them. So you give them 3%, you split it right down the middle. That's how I think it should be, and that's generally the case. Far and away, it's split right down the middle. But as a buyer's agent, sometimes the seller will not split it right down the middle. These days, they're giving less. They're giving, they might give you 2.5, 2.25. So in that case, the buyer will have to make up the difference. Say if it's 2.5, it'd make up zero point 0.5 or whatever on the commission for the buyer's agent. But generally, most of them is 3%, especially if they're playing it straight. Now, some of these other guys, Zillow, Open Door, all that stuff, that's how they're able to, work their deals or whatever. They cut commission and stuff. So, you know, and you might wonder why your house sits with Open Door or something like that. It's like, why people ain't buying it? Because buyer's agent don't want to show it because they ain't making no money on it. Because they cut the commission, they don't play it straight and just split it right down the middle. So that's a little something about them. But anyways, so that's so what do we do? We went pre-approval, commissions, how that works, house hunting, and that's pretty basic. What are you looking for? What areas? Are you like Stockbridge, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, an acre, fenced-in backyard, whatever it is, whatever you like. You want something in the city, you want a condo, whatever you're looking for, we'll find that kind of stuff for you, and we'll get it set up. Send some properties to your email. Tell me if you like them. Tell me if you hate them. Let's go see some of them. And if you see one that you really like, we'll put in an offer because we already got your pre-approval. We already got some cash in the bank. We're ready to go. So let's say next step is putting in an offer. So 123 Main Street, Stockbridge. Say it's 250,000. Write up an offer for the purchase. The purchase and sale agreement is the offer. That's the main page. Now there's addendums and amendments and all this kind of stuff based on the situation, but basically that's the contract, the purchase and sale agreement. That's the amount you want to offer. Now, say it's 250,000, you're gonna have to put up that deposit. That's the next item, earnest money. So generally, it's 1 to 2% of the purchase price. So say if it was, 250, what's that? 2,500, 1%, or 5,000, 2%. That's just showing them that you're serious, that you're for real. You're going to put up some real money because think about it from the seller's perspective. They only want real people. They got a lot of offers or whatever. They want people that's for real and can put, their money where their mouth is. Um, so this deposit, known as the earnest money, is held by a third party. It's held in what they call escrow. So it's held by either the broker or the closing attorney that's going to close. That's a month from now is going to close the loan, and you get the keys to the house and all that stuff. So you go ahead and put it in a third party bank account for neither party. It's neither the buyer's account or the seller's account. It's in the escrow account. So if the buyer defaults on the loan, 10 days in, the buyer just leaves town, goes to Mexico, you never see him again. Seller's going to take that earnest money. If the contract goes all the way through, the earnest money is applied to any amounts that's owed, the down payment, the closing costs. That's the earnest money is taken from this. So say if you owe 10,000 and you have earnest money is 2,500. Okay, the balance is 7,500 or whatever. So it's applied towards that. The earnest money is due in the first 3 to 5 days or so. Right at the beginning, you get a chance to kind of get into it for a second, and then that earnest money is going to be due. Um, let's see, it's due three. Generally, I write mine 3 days after the contract is accepted. So you put an offer out, and the seller accepts it. Okay, 3 days from that day is when the earnest money is going to be due. Most often, it goes to the closing attorney's escrow. Most often, it's a wire transfer directly from you to the closing attorney, so y'all will work that out. Um, let's see. So in a contract, it's not just okay. Well, once the offer is accepted, you're locked in and you can't get out. It's kind of like stages. Like it's a progression, and you have certain things that once you get past a certain stage, it gets a little bit more serious. Once you get up to a certain stage, it gets a little bit more serious, and once you get through all of it, that's when you get to closing. So here's here's a way to understand that. So there's some standard contingencies that kind of protect the buyer and their different stages of the contract as well. So you have the inspection, the due diligence period, the financing contingency, the appraisal contingency. These three are the main one: inspection, financing, and appraisal. So let's go through and talk about these. So after you get the contract accepted, so that's what's called under contract or pending. For you guys that's out there looking at houses, you see them under contract, you see them pending. This is what happens during that stage. So you send the offer, 250,000 stock bridge. The seller says, "Great, we love it." Okay, they sign it. Once you sign it all, it goes what's called binding. That means it's for real. But it's not all the way done deal by any means. So once you get a binding contract, you go right into what's called the inspection and the inspection slash due diligence period. Inspection period, it's kind of easier to understand. We say the inspection period because that's what kind of happens, and generally it's the first 5 to 7 days of the contract. You inspect it as a buyer, you inspect it, and you can get out of it for any reason during that first 5 to 7 days. And you pick what you want it to be. If you say, okay, we want the inspection period to be 5 days, and it's 5 days, and everybody agrees to it. Everything everybody agrees to. I put in 5 days. Okay, I sign, you sign. It's not a whole lot of surprises. So, but in due diligence, inspection, due diligence, the same thing. So why it's called inspection is you inspect it, but why it's called due diligence is, excuse me, you do all your homework during that period. You ask all your questions. You ask about the HOA. You check the seller's disclosure, what kind of repairs, what kind of upgrades, what's the school district like. You go take another look at it. You ride through at night. You check the neighborhood. You ask your friends about it. Whatever you need to do in that first 5 days, you do all of that. The biggest thing that happens in that first 5 days is you have a home inspection. It's not required, but it's a must. Get that home inspection, especially if you're a first time home buyer. If you're not a contractor, a guy that can just look at a house, see these guys on flip the house or whatever, they probably don't have home inspection. So they look at it, And so, okay, 20,000 to fix this thing up. We ain't them. You know what I'm saying? If you're just a normal person, you work at a desk job, 9 to 5, get a home inspection. Unless you're a construction expert and you build houses or you're a professional investor or something like that. Um, get that home inspection. What they're gonna do is, well, I'm jumping ahead, but the biggest thing in the due diligence period is the home inspection. So you do follow-up questions. Oh, the other thing in inspection period is the earnest money is due. So say if it's 5 days due diligence period, on the third day the earnest money is going to be due. So you see how it's kind of staggered. You have 3 days in that due diligence period to kind of make up your mind before you got to put your money up. So you can go take another look at the house and ride through the neighborhood, have second thoughts, wake up on the wrong side of the bed. It happens. You see another house that you like better, whatever it is, you can do that in the first 3 days before you put your earnest money up. Not to say that you can get it back easily, but it is tied up in escrow once it's a process. Once you send it in, to wire it into the closing attorney. They're gonna have to then cut you one of their checks and get the whoever to sign off on it. So it probably take like a week or something like that to get it back. They tie it up a little bit. But if you was to cancel after you already send your earnest money within the due diligence period, you can cancel for any reason to get your money back. But sometimes you cancel before you even send your money in. That's the simplest thing. And especially if you know you don't really want it, just cancel immediately. Um, but the earnest money is due during the due diligence period in most cases. Um, so let's jump ahead to the most important thing in the due diligence period, outside of earnest money, is the home inspection. Generally, $300 to $500 paid by the buyer. Uh, it's a thorough inspection to help understand the condition of the house. They check everything. They turn that whole thing upside down. Check all major systems. They crawl into the house. If they get on the roof, I think they got like a drone or something. They inspect everything they possibly can. And big thing that they do is, even if they're not like a termite specialist, they can see, they're like, oh, look like some termites. You might want to get that checked out. Or even if they're not a mold specialist, they say that whole wall right there, that looks like, based on my experience, like get that checked or whatever. Or you know, and they can see certain things like, oh, the foundation is missing a footing. Like, I'm not a foundation specialist, but you know, get that checked. So they do a lot of that, and they check the life of stuff. That like the roof is so and so years old, water heater is so years old, the air conditioner is so many years old, and they check all the lights and all the plumbing and all the, you know, they check it out really good. So that's a big thing. So once you get a home inspection, it might be great, or just really minor items like, okay, there was a missing light cover on a light switch. It's like, who cares? I go, fix that for $2. And let's just move ahead. Like, it's okay, and we can just move ahead. But if there's some major stuff, you can say, okay, this place is about to fall down. You can then cancel the deal, um, or you can ask for some repairs or ask for some money, or any combination of the two. Say, hey, there's a leaky pipe, get a plumber to replace it. Or it's a leaky pipe, give me $1,000 or 500. Or that tub's broke, give me 500, or replace the tub, or any combination of that. That's called, the buyer's agent will then send the seller's agent an amendment to address concerns. So basically, all your repair stuff. Got any repairs that you want, that you're not going to budge on? Anything minor, okay, is good. Let's just go with it. Or you could take a shot at them. Hey, give me 2 grand for all this miscellaneous stuff. They could say yes. They could say no. And then based on that, you could say, okay, well, forget it. We'll move forward. Or, you know what? If I don't get a little bit of money, I'm canceling the deal. So it's just kind of a talk, um, to see kind of where everybody's at. Major stuff is a big deal. Minor stuff, not really that big a deal. Um, But so here's something to kind of note is so due diligence is like your chance to say something. Like if you don't like it, you cancel. If you don't think the repair is good, you say something. You ask for some money. You ask for repair. You don't do it during the due diligence period. You're basically saying, you are saying that you're taking it as is. Say if you let that 5 day, now you let the due diligence period, the due diligence period expire once you're okay. Once you've addressed everything, and say that the seller agrees to fix the bathtub. You get that all in writing, you sign, they sign, you say, within 2 days of closing, the bathtub will be fixed and by a licensed contractor, everybody signs it. Okay, well, you give me $500 towards closing or whatever. You can, however you do it, you sign it all up because after that period expires, then you are saying, okay, well, we talked it all out. I'm okay with what happened, and we're moving forward. If you are not okay by the time it expires, like, hey, yeah, they didn't respond to none of these repair requests. It's like, okay, well, then that means we're canceling. We are going to cancel this deal. We are going to terminate this deal, and you got to get that termination in before the end of the due diligence period. Now you got 5 days to sort this all out, and you talk again, and as your agent, I'd be talking to you the whole time. Say, okay, we were on day 3. Let's talk about it. We just got the results from the inspection. Let's look at this. Let's go over it. You look at it. I'll look at it. We compare notes, see what's going on. But that kind of tells you whether you want to move forward or not. So that's most deals are made or break in that first 5 days. If you make it through that first 5 days, it's most likely going to make it to close. If you don't you'll know whether the deal is going to go all the way because most of the time it isn't lending, it isn't none of this other stuff. It's during the due diligence period, whether for whatever reason, when you see stuff coming back on the market, you guys that are looking out there, my buyers, they ask me about all the time, what happened where this one was back on the market? And I say it could be anything. The buyer could have worked up on the wrong side of the bed. The inspection could have came back bad. Um, anything, anything. They just decide they didn't want to buy no more. They want to renew their lease, whatever it is. It could be anything. But when it comes back on the market, that means, you know, most of the time it's behind that due diligence period. Now, sometimes people's financing fall through and all that kind of stuff. We're going to talk about that in a second. But most contracts, in my experience, they fall through in the beginning because that's the major thing, just to see if it's going to be up to par. And if it's not up to par, we're going to do what we need to do to make it up to par, or we're going to somehow be okay with it, or we're not. If we move past the due diligence period and we let that expire, we say, okay, we got what we need to get from the seller as far as repairs, or as far as money, or whatever. We agree to all this stuff, or it's in great condition. We don't need to get anything. We did all that. So if we move past, we do that knowing that that's where we're at. So that's that. So if you proceed, you're saying that you're okay with the condition of the house, right? So I said some of that. Okay. So the next one, so that's the inspection, the due diligence contingency. So that's a big one. So another big one is the appraisal contingency. So let me just kind of go by the notes for a second. So appraisal is ordered by a lender, and it's used um, to get the price of the house. The appraisal, um, the appraiser is a person that is licensed. They have different licensing than a real estate agent. They go to appraiser school or whatever it is to get their license, and they give a valuation of value or whatever, and the lender uses that to then say, okay, well, the appraiser said 230, it's 230. That's what we're going to lend on this, not 235. You will lend 230. So that's a big deal. The lender has the appraisal ordered, and that's something that's paid for out of pocket by the buyer. So if you're keeping track here, first out of pocket expenses. So the first one is the earnest money. That's a deposit that's going to be held through the life of the contract, like 30 days. So you got to have the means to have, thousands of dollars, however much, two, five, however much $1,000 held, tied up for a little bit. Excuse me. Then the next thing is the inspection. That's another out-of-pocket fee. That's $300 to $500, somewhere around. It's more obviously for a bigger house, less for a smaller house. Appraisal is in that same kind of range, about $500. Excuse me. So the appraisal is ordered by the lender. That's where they go in and see what the price is. And it typically happens after due diligence. So these are kind of the steps of how it happens. So the lender is kind of waiting for it to play out because, like I said, most deals fall apart in the due diligence period. So after that first 5 days, it's like, okay, boom, we're about to go get that. We're coming right back. They're coming right behind that. Like, okay, everybody wants to move forward. Okay, let's get this thing appraised. Let's let's go a little bit deeper. Let's see what it's really worth. And there's no appraisal like in a cash deal appraisal. Well, I take that back. There's not a the appraiser, the lender requires an appraisal. In a cash deal, a lot of people don't do appraisals because if it is what it is. Like I'm gonna give you $200,000 cash, you can get an appraisal, and it might be smart to get an appraisal, but a lot of cash deals don't have appraisals. Cost somewhere around $500. Um, the lender, so the lender has to have kind of an arm's length from the appraisal. Like obviously you don't want like the lender influencing appraisers, and you don't want them you want them to be arm's length, and that's how it happens. So the lender like calls, like they have like a dispatching service or whatever they call, like the appraiser manager, so they don't know who they get, and they don't really know who they have, like an intermediary. So they're not talking, they don't talk about it. The lender just knows like when they get the results and like what it is, like what the appraisal comes back as, but like they don't talk like in the process. Like there's an intermediary, and that's just to avoid any kind of corruption or whatever. Like that's a requirement from the government to keep like arm's length between them because it's important that they don't influence each other. Um, let's see. So the lender typically reaches out to the appraisal service to get one ordered. The appraisal comes and gives an assessment of value. The lender uses it to know how much the lenders will not go past the appraisal amount, no matter how much your pre-approval is. So that's one common misconception. Say, hey, I got a pre-approval for $1 million here. This house is worth 200. That's all that lender is going to give you. It don't matter how much you pre-approve for because the house secures the loan. If you don't pay your payments, they're going to take the house, and they want the house to be worth that full amount. They're not going to loan more than, so they're giving you money, but they got the house to back it up, and they wanted to fully back it up. Um, so this is kind of how it works, and this is where the appraisal contingency comes in. So say it was here's a couple of examples. So say the offer that was accepted is $200,000, and the appraisal that they send the appraiser out, and it's $200,000. Okay, so everybody moves forward. It's the amount that y'all had is what the appraiser agrees with what y'all said. So the appraiser it appraises. That's that industry terms, like, hey, the house appraised. So that means that it is worth what y'all saying it's worth. Here's another scenario. So the offer that's accepted is $200,000. The appraisal is 190. So this is where the problems come in. So the bank will only loan 190. If the appraisal is 190, bank is only going to loan 190. So somebody's got to do something. So the seller. So here's how you kind of work it. So the seller can come down to 190. That's what most often happens. Um, the buyer could also come up to 200. I think we said that was the, so if it's 190, they could come up, they could add 10,000 to it to be 200, or they could do a combination. The buyer could, I mean, the seller could come down to 195, and then the buyer could add five, so they can meet at 195. Here's where the appraisal contingency comes in. It protects the buyer if the house doesn't appraise for the contract amount. So say if it appraises for 190 and y'all have a contract on it for 200, you don't have to buy a house that's not worth what you said it's worth. Now you can choose to move forward with it, and you can choose to add more money, but you're not obligated. You can terminate the contract at the point that the appraisal comes in low. You can say, I'm out. This house ain't worth what I thought it was. Or the seller can say, hold on a second, we'll lower it to 190. Let's move forward. Let's move forward. We didn't realize we're gonna appraise low. Okay, boom, we could do that. But the appraisal contingency protects the buyer, and that's the second major. The first one is the due diligence inspection. It allows you to fully inspect it. The appraisal contingency is the second major one, where it allows the buyer to terminate the contract at the point that the appraisal comes in less than the contract price. So that's important. That's important, and it enables you to walk away if you get a low appraisal. But you can stay. You can stay, and the seller, stay. And you ask them. You ask the seller, "Hey, y'all gonna lower the price? It didn't appraise or whatever." And that's that's halfway what's already being thought. Everybody knows the appraisal. Okay, boom. We're lowering the price for moving forward. That's what happens most of the time. So moving on to the next one, financing contingency. There's three major contingencies that protect buyers in a contract. So it protects the buyers if financial circumstances change, for loss of a job, for example, or something that causes you to lose your financing and kill the deal. Because if you've ever dealt with a lender, they're checking you the whole time. They check you on the beginning. Okay, what's a pre-approval? We want to see, what's your job, and your bank account, and you tell us what it is, and then we're going to verify that. We're going to send you to underwriting. We're going to check, make sure you're still at your job, see what kind of debt you have, all this kind of stuff. They're going to check it again at various points. And in COVID, they've been known to check all the way to the day of closing. See, if you still got a job, you lost your job, they will pull the deal at the very last day. That's why it's important to have a financial contingency to protect you. Say if your financial position changes, you can get your earnest money back. If you lose your job or something like that, you can get out of the deal. That obviously will void the contract because you are no longer qualified to have a loan to buy the house. But what happens to that $5,000 or $2,000 you put up? It's like, okay, I know I'm out the deal, but what about my money? If you don't have a financing contingency in place, then that money goes to the seller because you broke your deal. You weren't able to complete the deal. So these main contingencies protect you. The due diligence, the inspection contingency lets you check that house to death and get out if you don't like it. Get out for any reason. Just the kind of the honeymoon phase. You to check it out. You come about the second day, you don't like it, you get out of the contract. Appraisal contingency. If it's not worth what you thought it was worth, you have an opportunity to get out or negotiate. You could stay in, but it's in your court as the buyer. You're not held to something that's not worth what you thought it was worth. Financing contingency. You lose your job or something like that, your loan falls through, you're able to get out of that loan and keep your earnest money. All three of these contingencies is not whether or not you'll get out, but you get out with your earnest money. That's the underscore, 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 underline, bold, italicized. Like you get out and you get out with your money. Like that's the biggest thing. And you're not held to it. You're able to get out and you get out with your earnest money. Because remember the earnest money, if you break the contract as a buyer, it goes to the seller. These are three loopholes or three conditions, contingencies. These are three excusable reasons for you to get out in there. And most things fall under these three. In the normal course of you're going to be able to be protected by these three. So, what's the closing like? So, the closing attorneys um, make sure that there's a clear title that passes from the seller to the buyer, no liens on it, no long lost cousin from some other state somewhere that's got an interest in the property. They check all that out. They check and make sure that that there's not some kind of tax lien or HOA lien or mechanics lien. It's called mechanics lien, mechanical lien, or something like that. Where when someone builds a house, they put a lien on it to make sure that they get paid. Um, no kind of liens on it. So they check all of that. They make sure it's going to pass. They make sure it's free and clear because these things go with the house. And if they were caught unchecked, it goes to you as the new owner. So you want to make sure it's all cleared up. The paperwork side of it and the title side of it. That's what they research. It's called title search. They research all this stuff and they make sure it's a good deal. So the closing table, um, so when you go to closing, you have to wire the funds in as a buyer. So you wire the funds. You have to, your lender's going to tell you um, how much it's going to be. It's like, okay, well, you need to wire $8,732 or whatever they tell you, and you wire it straight to the closing attorney. They give you all the wiring instructions and all this kind of stuff, and you do that a day or two before closing, so it's already there or whatever. And traditionally, there are some small discrepancies sometimes, like $100 or whatever. So it's a good idea to, send a couple extra $100 or on it or whatever. If you overpay, they'll cut you a check. They give you a refund or whatever. You paid $130 too much. Okay, check here. They'll cut you a check at the closing table. So just do a little bit more just to make sure you got it. You got it all. That's a general good rule of thumb. Um, so you wire all the funds. Um, it's the down payment and the closing cost less the earnest money. So as a buyer, you make it all the way to the end. You got your earnest money that's all ready to deposit. So you owe the down payment and closing cost less the earnest money. You'll get final numbers to review beforehand from the lender. The seller will get numbers. The buyer will get numbers, the agents get numbers. They all review, just make sure everything's right. So you'll know is that it's not going to be any surprises. It's going to be the same thing that y'all just looked at, and it's going to be, and it should be very close to even the estimate that you got at the beginning. So it's going to be the same thing at the end, or very close to it. Um, and then at the closing table, you already know what it's going to be. Um, the closing the whole closing experience mostly has to do with the lender, and that's why a cash close is really simple. So if you're a seller, you got a cash buyer, you go in and out because it's just about changing. They send the money in, okay, good, and they check the title, okay, good, you're out. Like it's quick, it's easy. The lender part is what makes it complicated. Lender wants you to sign 50 uh, you know, ways that you sign your name. They want to make sure that they're gonna get paid. They get their money. They want to make sure that they got you on the line for the promissory note, and you agree that you're gonna pay, um, and all stuff related to that. And bottom line is you agree that you're gonna pay. You got the ability to pay and all this kind of stuff, and they've already checked you to death, but they get it, this thick or whatever papers. They want to show every way that you ever signed your name, and it's just you sign stuff to death. But the closing attorney is the master of ceremonies. They get the packet from the lender. The lender sends it in and say, okay, this is what we need signed. So they send it all in, and the closing attorney like administers all of it. Like they look at this stuff all day. And so me as an agent, I'm there basically for moral support. I'm like, hey, congratulations, all this kind of stuff. You sign all your paperwork, we shake hands, and we take a picture, whatever it is. That's my role there. It's not where I'm, passing out papers or anything like that. I might be a witness or whatever. A lot of times when there's an agent there, they'll be like, okay, witness this, sign here, stuff like that. But the attorney is what, and they go through every part of it. After a while, you get tired of asking questions, though. You're like, okay, where do I sign? Where do I just sign, 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 sign? Like it'll get like that. But in the beginning, you'll be asking the questions like this, and they'll answer every question. They were very knowledgeable about all the paperwork and stuff that you got to sign. But it's very much about the lender. So that's what they just want to make sure they're going to get paid. They want to make sure you're going to make your payments and all this kind of stuff, and that you've signed up, signed everything that they needed to have signed and all that. So it's just a bunch of paperwork. Um, so the funds will be so okay. So yeah, you get a couple of days before, as a buyer, you'll wire in your the money for what they call cash to close, the down payment, the closing cost. Um, the day of the day of closing, traditionally, the seller will get their money wired to them for the purchase price. Um, Sometime that day, like if it's in the afternoon, maybe the next day, if they get some paperwork sorted out or something, generally like the same day or maybe the next day in the morning or something. So it's pretty quick. Um, and then you'll get your keys and everything, garage door openers, anything like that, shed door, all that stuff. You get all that stuff at closing, and and that's it, and that's it. So that's basically what happens. So from start to finish, um, you're very much protected as a buyer through the contract, and it seems like a lot, but it's it's designed to make sure you're comfortable. And then as you get comfortable, it's like, okay, let's move to the next stage. Let's move to the next stage. And it's important for you to have these. So if there's anything they took away from this, um, those contingencies in the contract are just so important, and it's designed, um, to protect you as a buyer, um, to make sure that you're not just caught out like when you sign the line, because there's a lot of buyers like when you first start out, like they're like really nervous about putting in an offer. Like don't be, because first of all, you submit an offer, you can terminate it for any reason in the first 5 days. So in competitive situations, like shoot the offer, shoot the offer. And it's like, oh well, do I really, shoot the offer and then shoot two other offers at the same time? It's like, well, what if they select one and then I had two other offers, out here for these other ones? It's like, well, like we said, you got 5 days to cancel, so it's like you pick this one, cancel the other two, or that's only even in play if they accept it. You shoot an offer, they might not never even respond. That's only if they accept all of them. And if they do that, you pick which one you want and you cancel the other ones. Or maybe you try to negotiate with them, say, hey, Let's try to get this to see which one will give us the most stuff. Um, but that's just a little bit about the contract, and I just wanted to make a video from start to finish, so that people can see the whole process, and so that way it's all there, so that it's fully explained. I just want to take a second to fully explain and then make a video where people could go back and look at it. Um, so thanks for tuning in. If you made it this far, I appreciate it. And yeah, thanks for checking me out. And I'm going to keep coming back with more videos every week. And everybody have a great week. Thank you.